Ukei au turanga meu maro roeana ganga meu bueta na vanua au tuva karau.
These people don't have rights because they don't know that they have rights. These people have the right to life, and that is a basic right where all these things fit in. The right to housing, the right to education, the right to water, the right to electricity, and all the rights. Because you have the right to life, and that is in our constitution, the right to life.
हम बहुत दुख से अपन लड़कन के पाला, सबके पाल के हम बड़ा करा, अभी चल रहा था दुख से सबके पाल के बड़ा कर, अभी तो हम लड़का है बस लड़का का आश्रम है.
Daw rin ito nga may na housing authority sa Bilbino sa Uniren nila na matabubayan daw ito na housing ako na nung sa nagsumay mo may chigon din chigon mo may tubatikira kura lako talaga may nangun sa lipangangar.
But many of them are living there at the will of the landowner, and maybe there are some sort of economic arrangements made to satisfy the landowner. But in general, people speak about squatters as being anybody who lives in that informal settlements throughout the country.
A squatter is a person who is in occupation of state, freehold or native land illegally or without any form of security of tenure or without any consent from the landowners.
By 2006, approximately 12.5% of Fiji's population is living in over 182 squatter settlements around the country. The Western Division is home to 80 settlements. The Central and Eastern Divisions have 72, and in the Northern Division, squatter settlements number 30. The Greater Suva area continues to have the highest squatter population. In the 6 years from 1999 to 2005, the number of squatter settlements has almost doubled. A large portion of this increase is attributed to the expiry of 5,661 leases affecting 28,300 households. Other reasons for moving to and living in these settlements vary, from seeking better education, opportunities to searching for jobs, and being closer to proper health facilities.
Some of these squatters have been living in their settlements for more than 40 years, and they think that it's like that is how it should be. But what we try and do is we are trying to minimize the flow of all those who want to dwell in a squatter settlement.
तो इस अवस्था पे हम लोग बहुत दुख उठाया छोटा मोटा, लेकिन फिर भी उस दुख के कुछ परवाह नहीं करते हुए भूखे नहीं रहा, अपन कमा करके और किसी के चोरी नहीं किया, अपना पसीना गार के और यही बा के आसपास में रहा. If I got no money, I can't do anything. So look this house, first of all this. I got no chair to let you sit down.
Kita tinggal komentar tentu balik. Kasau sautin bin. Kasau sartan bin. Tu sanggai mesamak. pa vina long kaulile buka tokai sanakan tuai kitsanga me taya tosanga me bulung-bulung kan ikai yang kan tavaya tosanga me buluta me tarsarto nem toval na kito ombiu korma imbaleta kirome vinkaravuli kirome aliuma ni ro ulmatu machinga vendana na tutu nge salenga ni ramengaravikina amani lakoin na korna ken sinse zaman deki kerkerbe na tandera ni same bangara kesugo imanda kita sa rende sara ni tutu ni sa takala tuan kambana ni tutai avia tabi ro tu ai labni rawat mai batke na dur ni ngone ni erto le vachu betirau le tulur to sa secondary nanda se primary ya kambenga ndo kita stawa tanga batanga ni to wai sember ni tua batela ni ro sangatu mera puli le sonangon na ka batali beliba na benga medanga ndrenga to me stawa tok ten non dur ngangon
dan kanu kutu me ponua sanen kele mumu ponua ndende to kana ponua ya ngauna endo sote be ndende ndakita auto tombole mai tulo maile ani tu vale kina ngon sala libu ponua to kina tibana na kolta pitie ponua ya ndo me bonde kina me da kalambasa yo au saya tani pakame ndende be no ponua ya o sibiera buli ningone ngone lewa ra bulti ko se ngone ngone lai lo nungu ngone lewa yo sangkai sengami mai tigo puno bola ke tauni rani toshike nungu tadaka abinaka osibina bulni ngone.
In 1955, the then government of Fiji was advised that it had to address the increasing demands for housing in the urban areas, as the demand in Suva at the time had already far outgrown itself to accommodate housing needs. As a result, the Fiji Housing Authority was established in 1955 to assist low-income bracket households secure reasonable and decent housing. 15 years later, a Catholic priest, Father Dermot Hurley, saw the growing numbers of people who were destitute, so together with the Fiji Council of Churches established the Housing Assistance Relief Trust, known as HART.
It all sounded so good, an ideal graduation that people could step from HART to Public Rental Board to Housing Authority. But the trouble was, because there was a lack of employment and because, as I mentioned before, wages were so low, people got stuck all the way along. So the whole, if you like, economic situation of people who were in poor situations didn't improve. Poverty increased, inequality increased. So in fact, the ideal system just didn't work. Very few were able to walk up the ladder.
There's an issue there with Housing Authority and its ability to continue to provide affordable housing. We need to then link up with the, with the poverty report. We seriously must take a look at low wages as a contributing factor for people's inability to afford housing in Suva. A major proportion of our working population live in poverty. So you're talking about the regulation of the housing market. That's an issue that needs to be investigated.
Most of these quarters were former tenants of these housing authority flats, and with the high cost of rent, they are unable to afford. So we come to the squatter settlement and just build with what little they earn. Most of them are earning below $5,000 a year. And think of feeding their families 3 times a day, the school children's education,
it's a bit hard for them. And with us, with our program, we try and empower them to see ways for them to have creative ideas of helping themselves.
Sa sintara ng bula na isaw ni tamatadakadaka. Merota na non bula mi soma na vale, soma na kana, soma na iduru-duru. Non revila ko akin nangone non rebondo-bondo. O kila na kaya sa tara non rambula sa rabangara na bono meron retiu kina meron ni radenguba ng bula.
जब हमने 2000 जो 31 दिसंबर को जब हमने यहाँ पर आए और 1-2 हफ्ता ऐसे रहे तो घर पर हमारे जो छत है, छत नहीं था, टीन जो है ऊपर नहीं था, सिर्फ खाली किनारे किनारे हम लोग कुछ ना कुछ घेर घार के रहे क्योंकि अपने परिवार को जिलाने की जा। उसी समय फिर हमने प्रार्थना किया, विनती किया, सब चीज़ करने के बाद हमने सोचा कि किस प्रकार से हम लोग की ज़िंदगी गुजरेगा और बेसारू लौट के हम जा नहीं सकते। हम सबको लीज जो है हमारी वो एक्सपायर हो गया था। जब लीज एक्सपायर होने के बाद वो बहुत दुख और बहुत दर्दनाक समय था।
Residents of these informal settlements have different explanations for their presence, but an overwhelming majority cite education and the need for a regular source of cash. For those who work, most, if not all, earn salaries below the poverty line. Expiring land leases triggered the recent mushrooming of squatter settlements in the country. 2001 was one of the worst years when 13,100 leases expired, affecting about 22,000 people.
वो हमारे पिताजी के रहा, पिताजी हमारे गुजर गए तब जाति भाई लोग ज़मीन के ले ली ना, तो फिर हम लोग फिर वहाँ से फिर चले आवा। जब वो लोग नहीं दे मांगे लीस ना तो हम लोग चले आवा। फिर जब हम तुआ में आवा पहला साल तो हम वहाँ पे 1 साल गन्ना काटा। वहाँ पे गन्ना काट के बाद में तो फिर हम ऐसे अपने आप के परिवर्तन कराना कि हम कोई ऐसे नौकरी करी, कोई व्यवसाय करी कि हमारे लड़के बच्चे तब हम उसके पाल सकी ना। जैसे हम लोग छोटा मोटा जैसे पैसा वैसा जैसे बचा कर रखी थे ना, तो वही हम लोग के सिलक में काम आ जाए। फिर हम लोग छोटा मोटा ऐसे तरकारी बेच लेते थे, फिर वही वाला हम लोग के चल जाए ऐसे ना।
Incentive packages can be provided to encourage even businesses relocating to rural areas, to rural towns, economically run-down areas of Fiji. These incentives are not new things. It can come in terms of tax cuts, in terms of subsidies, in terms of infrastructural development, roads, providing, and that will be the role of government to provide these things. It's not a new concept. As we look around us, we can see a similar concept in the Look North policy for Vanuatu and Lambasa, the economically run-down areas. But unfortunately, this promise in the Look North policy has not really been followed through by commitment in resources from government, and that is sadly also missing from only the recent November 2007 budget.
सोचता तो है ना, रोज़ के तो सोचे के पड़े ना कि आज बीत गए, बिहान पता नहीं कैसे बीते ना, ऐसे आगे के बारे में सोचे के पड़े हैं। हम लोग तो बीते हैं, देखो अभी इतना दुख काट के तो हम लोग बिता लिया है। अब आगे चल के भी हम लोग कैसे ही करे पड़ी। अभी तो चलाता है, कोई भी हिसाब से हम लोग अपन चलाता है ना, चाहे रूखा सूखा भी खाए के अपन लड़कन के हम लोग पढ़ाता है। लेकिन जब एकदम ऐसे पानी नहीं बरसे लगे तो हम लोग के तो काम नहीं हुए। जब काम नहीं हुए तो बहुत तकलीफ़ हो जाए हम लोग की।
Everyone in this country has rights. If you're a citizen of this country, and even if you're a resident of this country, you have rights, and those rights are protected in the Constitution. So it would be erroneous to assume that just because you're squatters or just because you're on the margins of society or on the fringes of society, that you don't have access to rights. And the reason why the Human Rights Commission is here is because it was set up in 1999 to protect everyone's rights. Now, with respect to squatters, it's a huge problem. I think governments in the past have grappled with the influx of people coming into the urban areas. And my view is that one should never see squatters as a small problem of just squatters. It really reflects what else is going on in society. And it reflects things like the economic base of society. It reflects whether we have social welfare provisions, whether we have safety nets in place, so that if people are for some reason evicted, let's say, or being a part of the urban drift, and that if they're no longer able to fend for themselves or to find a place to live, whether we have appropriate mechanisms in place to be able to look after them. So it is in fact very much a rights issue.
When leases are not sorted out, when you still play politics with the land issue, the whole thing feeds on to another, and secondary industries and the people who work in there are affected.
Rajan Avikash is a 13-year-old who assists his family by selling corn during the weekends.
It felt like that every time I should be a shopkeeper, then I can not go around it. And when I will grow up, then I cannot go around it like that. I just build one shop and put some fish like that.
Itu korona bulti kini adong anak kelas walu. Garawatan na mobil naman sa bangkaran doon naman na malibuli kinalwem. Sor sa angol naman ng bala, sor angol naman. Hindi para lago may. Hindi ko na kami rent, hindi para rent itu. Kito mau kalungatan ni kito may. Basta man doon naman nung siyang tinarent. So matangang go so doon natabal yung cross na matasawti. Sa singsam tunon na bale sa tao tunon dakadak. Kay rent. Sa tuno ko na to ko na bale to sa bangalal. Sa sing tuni bulur tunol ben.
Sa kilit ko gimi na chubango lebunga lenga sartu na roka bella we tanjini ni kimi meta ka na roka bella we sangat ni beroro na soni bolongon ko ambin satu sta cunga bata na soni rent ratungo sasaran kimi metungo sa sartu na soni rent
Baleta vango nanon rambiung menakoro sandui ora nandui lubana rabuli merangai tens fave benvikoro ramai bobo senon rabale rasin rawatin saumuna sauni bale banan rauru nan rawe rangai kere-kere.
When my lease expired, that time I too much afraid. Because myself, I'm father, and I married all my children there, and I make the house there, 3 houses there. When lands and house all go finished, then you people know what happened with us that time. It's very bad time. Landowner came and he take one notice and he gave us notice. He told, okay, you people go out from here. Then I kere landowner, please, only give me house block. You take all the lands. Lands is yours. Only give me house block. Then no. They not agree. They told no, you have to go. That's why we came here.
You will find a lot of these people who actually had been living on land for 30, 60 years, for a very long time, almost a century now, actually have nowhere to go. And there isn't a mechanism in place or some kind of fallback position in place that the governments can say to them, well, look, your lease is going to expire in 5 years' time and you're not going to get this renewed. What are you thinking of doing? And they would say, well, we don't know. Can the government help us? And the government would say, okay, these people are going to be thrown into probably the urban centres and are likely to squat. Can we set aside some land, maybe on a much longer term, lease term with the landowners or Crown land or whatever it is, to ensure that these people aren't squatting somewhere else and becoming a social problem for the whole of society? So I think we need to go right back to say whether or not there are any policies in place. And I just honestly, to be frank, I don't see any policies in place. We seem to be looking at the problem after it has occurred rather than trying to prevent it.
Another type of squatting that exists in Fiji is often referred to as vakavanua. These are verbal agreements between people in need of a dwelling place and landowners. While these settlements are usually in much better shape than most other urban squatter settlements, verbal agreements are discouraged by authorities as there is no protection should landowners start charging or increasing rentals at will. One such Vagavanua settlement is Sowiri Settlement, established in 1929 by Apollosi Nawai.
Na navamadhala via na nunguloni vale ni tukuno tamana. Nangelengo ortusele manitokeni nora itaingo na maduku na solo. Merete tawana tiko na korongo. Iwai merete ukanakina I vanua merete teikina. Kaya sama nindetunga kina na yalo saratunga saraweli tiko ni sa iliu saratu visuli na teukeningele patekereto na mai teu ya vukio. Satungo na embisauti sanga ya me vikitungo sanga tiko ni tupaipo. Liva sa tiko vikito sabi mama nga so tiko na liva so senga na tamba na teu ko ngani lavo yang ko sabi mama telenga so sava paipo tiko so senga isenga tiko na paipo ya nakateu ko ngakim sa sisili ngai wai sava wai na weni kaka na telenga wai nakakide nga sakim ka ngai wele.
The illegal status of squatter settlements prevents households from accessing essential services like electricity, roads, drainage and sewerage systems. But subdivisional development plans by the Housing and Squatter Settlement Unit include all these in their lots. Between 1992 and 2000, 10 major subdivisional projects were completed involving the development of 1,572 lots accommodating some 7,500 people. The Squatter Settlement Unit recently acquired 45 acres, which is being developed into 322 lots, scheduled to be ready by December 2006. In 2007, the unit hopes to acquire another 65 acres. But increasing settlement populations and the standard of 200 square meter lots means that not everybody is accommodated.
So this plan program which we had to resettle squatters, it's not working. Definitely no. Because these places are overcrowded, very densely populated and very difficult to develop with sitting tenants or squatters. So this is the way to go, acquire vacant land and shift people. We give them something better because instead of sitting on a 40 to 50 square meter lot, they can occupy lots which are now about 400 to 600 square meter. So they can have some backyard gardening, a very secure place. So this is the way we are encouraging people or squatters to move to new areas. We do our own assessment. We find that yes, 50% of the people are below the poverty line. And that's why we got these various schemes.
Is squatting an individual problem or individual failure, or is it an institutional failure? By the look of things, this squatting problem is not an individual failure where people choose to come. Okay, Say for example, if you look at the trend of the housing should start, people should start from hut and then save up enough money to move to PRB, to save up enough money and then be able to buy something of their own, which is something from Housing Authority. But that trend it's really good. But when we look at how public rental board or housing is running at the moment, they are mostly a profit-making organization. It's no longer there for the benefit of the low income earners. So people are stuck where they are. So by doing that, they flock in to this squatter settlement. Okay? So we ask ourselves, whose fault is that?
One of the major things that we have to come to terms with, the lack of infrastructure, problems for better schools for our children. We often hear the word from our relatives who have left our villages and are in the urban centers, and it shows it's a testimony of the decaying, the lack of investment into public infrastructure, important public infrastructure like education, access to public health.
Timaima Kotumbalavu was born in Suva and has lived in Jitu Estate all her life. She is currently a Form 7 student and hopes to be able to continue her education at the University of the South Pacific in 2007. For a school project, Timaima studied social issues faced by her peers in her settlement.
Most of them, they want to finish the education, but because of this less money, they cannot complete the education. And this has caused them to being dropped out from schools. And they're just mucking around, taking drugs. Some of them are just wasting their time, just doing nothing. Makes me want to persevere, like finish my education, go for tertiary studies, and get a better job and get out from here. I just hope that they might see things better to do in their life. Not to feel sorry for them, for their own selves, being brought up in this kind of situation, but try to live a better living, get a better living. It's quite hard. I mean, especially being brought up in this kind of situation, seeing what's happening around here. In a way, it encourages me to go further.
I've witnessed that in past years, where our forefathers, even my grandfather, his time and my father's time, where we used to do that solevaki type of work, and we call it by working together. In Fijian, we call it solevaki. So, and I think if the people in the squatter settlements work together, they could do a lot in terms of cleaning up their compound. You know, even though they are staying in a squatter settlement, they could make the environment look a bit better by cleaning their own compounds and digging their own rubbish bins, looking after their toilets, even trying to build their houses nicely.
The Ministry for Environment worked with residents of Wailea settlement in Suva on a pilot project. The project saw the establishment of a Wailea Litter Prevention Committee that eventually convinced the Suva City Council to provide waste collection services at a much lower rate. Residents contributed to buy the skip bins and agreed to a monthly contribution of $1 to ensure the service continues.
Initially, before we had done any awareness, people were, non-committed towards waste. They thought they could produce whatever amount of waste and just throw it in the river, and that was the end of their waste. They had gotten rid of it. It went somewhere, but where, they didn't really care. But after our awareness work, they realized that, it doesn't just go away, it remains in that river. They use that river and they are affected by it. Also, they used to burn their waste. That's also harmful because there are so many kinds of things you're burning, metals, plastics, which can have an effect on their health as well. So we got all these things across to them. One other thing we try to tell these people, now that we've told them that, okay, waste management is important for their environment and health, now that we've done that, they're thinking that skip bins is the solution. That's it, that's the solution to the waste management problem. But really, we're trying to tell them to minimize their waste, not to, generate as much as possible and then have the skip bins. Because the less that they produce, the less amount of money they'll have to give for the collection. And then you have your PET bottles and things which you can recycle and get the money from.
Apart from the Ministry for Environment, there are other organizations and government departments that are beginning to recognize the potential in people forced to such deplorable situations. Those who work with residents of such settlements agree that squatters cooperate and are beginning to exist as one unit regardless of one's ethnicity or religion. Improvising has become second nature and relations are good. But attitudes must change towards them.
Easy for me to look after my children over here because I never see any problem. We can just leave our house like that. We can go and wash the clothes. Nobody can come and steal like that. Nobody disturbing at night. Some things like that. And this place is quite good place. Well, as you can see, the house far away, but still they take care of one another.
Bula tubango onda ng bulan ni Lorica ng bulan ni Vilaman. Bigyan mami na may tu na squatters. Hindi matentu na mi may kina. Salame bono lewu, salame ngau. Hindi bono kami mila ko may kina. Watay da kami na India kami sa may tu. Batang kami sa may Willy. Mendo tu na bakit kami sando na kor. Sa may ba chairman tagi na bonongo. May da kana kina committee na kina tango magina chuku may chuki na go waile.
There are two sides of squatter settlements. On the one hand, you have squatter settlements being criticised as being eyesores. So city councils and government want to get rid of squatters, move them preferably to a place where they won't be seen, move them far away. They say they're not paying their rates, city rates. They shouldn't be voting in elections. They don't need to be consulted. They're just an eyesore. They're lazy. They are hopeless people. They've got nothing to contribute. And we often hear that side or that attitude. Squatters are really a part of the solution. There's enough housing being provided by government, so they're putting up their own homes. Often, many of them don't have full-time employment, so they're creating their own employment. So they're really providing creative solutions to areas where government is finding it difficult to move in terms of housing, in terms of employment. And we should never forget that the squatters are contributing to the economy of the country. Many people in squatter settlements are working as security guards. Some of them are working as nurses or maybe in the police force, maybe in supermarkets or whatever. So they're earning some wages, and they're also buying things from the supermarkets and whatever. They're paying taxes, indirect taxes, VAT. So they are contributing to the economy of the country.
One thing you must consider that the squatters are resourceful. They don't like to be dependent on anybody, They would like to fend for themselves, but all they want is some opportunities created for their survival, because it's an issue of bread and butter or sustenance.
tendolei siwa the hondo biulawa dona bongi lavana kavi bang todo kai to biulawa semata lelai in Roma na twinika do limlai tui ya dona tui $10 $10 sun ngauna ke tolong ramai bitulai tui yang gay musu kana sen bensini soni leiba kenapa untuk mengatakan benar ini teman-teman balik.
Aja, baru ni lagi, ni je baru ni. Aja tu baik. Nung guru-guru nila boleh wasara watungan udah kanggali. Meusiwa na kavango udah kamodu. Asenga ni sendun gumaket ni wadonga mai ke rasa matar sakilanga kan.
We are living in a squatter area, so we don't have our own piece of land to do the farming. So we planted we went to have land from other people. We shared the land with them, and we planted rice on their farm. And after planting the rice, when it is ready to harvest, we harvest the rice. And we give half the share to the landowner, and we get half of the share what we harvest.
So good you manage with this all this kind of writing.
Yes.
Aruna is a student at the Fiji Institute of Technology in Suva studying quantity survey. She is the only female student in her class on attachment at the Public Works Department in Lambasa.
Nails, all those things will come under carpentry.
Ritesh Ronald Prasad is a Form 4 student at Mbulileka Sanatan College. He lives with his father because it is near his school and wants to become an engineer. He prefers Nriketi, where the family used to live before having to relocate to Bangladesh squatter settlement.
For the next 20 years, we will continue to see these expiry issues. And unless we do something better in the rural development, so rural urban migration will continue. So we need to have some policy initiative, some policy directive, some attitudinal change in the people, in the planners, to entice people to stay in the rural areas and do something better rather than flocking into the towns and cities. When you do an analysis of why people are moving here, you'll find that the grandparents are here supporting the grandchildren to go to schools, like FIT is here, USP is here, some better secondary schools are here, sporting complex, is better opportunities for developing into, sporting arena. So all these things are attractions. And then eateries, once you are in town, if you get the taste of all this bright light syndrome kind of thing, so people will not like to go back.
The non-resolution of land, maybe we can resolve it there. Less former king farmers will be coming to Suva, so therefore not so much an exponential growth in our squatter population, but so it's a different. We have different views on this, and some of, but I think the fundamental thing that it's something that we need to work together hand in hand, and that will include and we encourage each other, particularly the private sector included in here in terms of the provision of affordable housing, and of course government and civil society.
Sandundun me redan maten tu na tampan ke me tu bango na sok me tu rasa sarani me birurucu kota na sonimbula angara mi buli ani bi katale so mi bulu kena na matamu balle kerani takawan ton maten tu misulen ton na osinilap bimbina buli era tereda kina no ngone buli merani ra buli pina merata na kata merani kakuni mena ba recukutali kene memingoni merani rata na cucungo merapang rata sunu pun pina merale cuki.
And the main issue here, the main thing is the land, you know. If the government could do something about the land, then there is a big go for the people that's living in here. Because I think for each and every household to move back to their own village is going to be quite hard because they find it easy here, because they work here, you know, and they don't want to go back to the village.
Also, maybe chiefs need to be consulted more by city councils and by government in this whole area of housing, because they are traditional chiefs, they hold authority, they have good ideas often that are not tapped into. I think the churches should be very interested in what's happening to people. I think churches should be very interested in the housing that people have and in the whole poverty issue.
Fiji is an agro-based economy. We have to develop our agricultural sector. We have to, identify markets where they can sell the produce, or more like a growth center in selected rural areas or islands, so that people don't move to urban areas.
From 2007, for the first time in human history, the majority of the world population will be urban dwellers. By 2030, the world urban population would have increased by 2 billion, while the rural population would have decreased by 20 million.
We collect money from people in all our churches, and perhaps one of the targets in collecting money could be to build some houses in each parish, in each area, to help people who are poor, so that we don't limit ourselves only to religious activities, but we see that we can contribute to help people in their areas of need, particularly in housing.
They are not really targeting the root cause of the problem, which is the wages. These people are earning below the poverty line. And for them to participate, for them to even buy their own house and save up to be able to loan money, they don't have the capacity to do that. So all this program is just like a band-aid approach to alleviating poverty. The government needs to refocus of where alleviation of poverty can target. So I think in my perspective, in my own experience in squatter settlement, the only way out for these people is to increase their salary, to meet that base where they can participate in life.
How I can buy this block? I have no money this time. If lands department come here, okay, you have to pay here 10,000 or 15,000 for this block. I have no money. If government can help us to go the back, if NLTB told, okay, we will give to the lease, again you people come back, then it's good.
According to the most recent UN Human Settlements Program estimates, 3 billion current urban residents live in places characterized by insecurity of tenure, poor structural housing conditions, deficient access to safe drinking water and sanitation, and severe overcrowding. Squatter settlements or slums.
Well, first of all, I just don't think it's their responsibility. I think it's the responsibility of the state to provide everybody with the basic necessities of life, like water, housing, health, and adequate standard of living for everybody, work, and so on. That is a state obligation. I mean, this is why when we talk about human rights, we're talking about the obligations of states, not obligations of individuals.
with the social analysis workshop, that is a workshop that we empower these community members who are living in the squatters. We are trying to, in the workshops, we teach them in ways of how to speak up for their own selves, for their future. When they are in the squatter settlement, conscientization, and we need them to break out and to wake up. And with this social analysis too, we don't only help them in waking up, we help them in working for themselves. And that's one thing of getting them to think positive thinking in ways of moving forward, instead of staying in the squatter settlement and thinking that this is it and this is how it should be.
If anybody give the money, I'm afraid to buy. Also, I'll put that money in some other use. Some other use. I got no good beds. I am sleeping in the floor. I'm not died. I got no sickness in the body. So you're going to see my house in event and see. आप घर के अंदर हल के देख सकता है, हमारे पास खटिया नहीं, हमारे अच्छा कुर्सी नहीं, अच्छा से वो डाइनिंग रूम नहीं, सिटिंग रूम नहीं, हम लोग हैप्पी है. आई एम हैप्पी ऑल्सो. आई एम नॉट greedy that oh that fella got bought to everything, the video set. I don't bother. Nothing. I'm happy.
Even when the economies are operating, when people are in employment, I think what we also need to understand that even the 1997 poverty report talked about quite a huge proportion of people in employment themselves actually live a life of poverty. So even if we kind of talk about an economy which is operating, okay, we'll still need to look at what exactly all those people who are working, how much are they taking home in terms of pay? Is that take-home pay sufficient enough to meet their family needs and obligations, including one of their fundamental needs is affordable housing?
I've struggled seeing my parents. They try their very best to give me what's best. I've now reached Form 7. I'm not on scholarship. Sometimes you'll just know that there's something inside. Maybe there's a reason for me being brought up here, so that I can, to be a good leader, you have to know what it's like. When it's like, those people who are suffering, you've gone through that suffer, so you've gone through all the situation. So I'm sure I will try. If I become a good leader in the future, I'm sure I know what it's like to go through all this, whatever comes up, all the circumstances, because I'm sure I've gone through all this. I can do it. It makes me want to persevere and endure for